So my dad is a completely uneducated genius. His lack of formal education turns into these things I call dadisms, where he'll say, like, I'm telling you, Christine, my life passed between my eyes. Or he'll say, like, she really went the whole 7 yards with that one. But his genius, it comes in the way his brain works. You know, he's a mechanic when I was growing up, and he could look at anything and tell you how it works. He could take anything apart. He could put anything together, which is how, even though we were super poor, we had all of these cars. Because my dad would just go to the junkyard and buy a chassis and then bring it home and build it from scratch. So my first car was a 92 Geo Prism on the outside, and it had a Camaro engine on the inside. So I would go flying down the Texas highways, and the speedometer ended at 85, and it would just wiggle. And in those ways, my dad was like the cool dad, you know? But he was also really intimidating. My dad was like classic ex-Air Force Vietnam vet, right? You know the kind, like allergic to feelings. Like I vividly remember, this is one of my earliest memories, I was 4 or 5 years old. It was our first fishing trip in Gun Barrel City, Texas. And my grandpa pulled up this sunfish, and it was like flopping on the dock, and it was like gasping. It had the hook in its mouth. It was really disturbing for me as a little kid. So I run up the dock to my dad, and I bear hug his legs, but he was standing with a fishing pole, and the hook was right at eye level. So when I bear hugged his legs, it went straight in my eye. And obviously I start screaming, right? And my dad goes, calm down, calm down. And he leans over and takes my chin, takes a good look at it, you know, and hadn't gone in far enough, hadn't gone to the barb. So he just plucks it out. He picks me up, yells at my mom on the grass. He goes, hey, Jan, take this one to the house and put some sporn in her eye. She's gonna be fine. So it was like this classic dysfunctional dynamic growing up, where like absolutely knew that my dad loved me, but certainly not because he ever said so, right? And in my late 20s, I start realizing that I'm attracted to women. And I was, thank you. And I was still attracted to men too, but there was definitely like something happening when I would see a beautiful woman. And I was like, okay, definitely don't want to talk to my family about this, right? Like, I was raised Southern Baptist. Like, I wasn't allowed to own Sarah McLachlan CDs because she was a bad influence. And I had always known, deep in my heart growing up, that like that side of the church was wrong. I knew that. And the most vicious fight my parents and I ever had was in high school when I wanted to go to a dance with my gay Mexican Jewish friend Zahiv. And my parents forbade it. They were like, if you go to the dance with him, everybody's gonna think you're gay too. And I defied them for the first time. And I remember when I left that night, I yelled at them from the doorway. I said, you don't worship the same God that I do. It's like super dramatic. And so, like, needless to say, this new revelation, right, had no interest in telling either of my parents about this, but especially had no interest in telling my dad. So over the years, you know, as I'm telling him about the men that come in and out of my life, and he would say, like, oh, you seem to be working your way down the alphabet. And there were women, of course, but I never told him about any of them. And then a couple years ago, I meet this woman, and I can tell right away she's going to be a big deal. I know it. And I know I've got to tell my family about it, and I know I've got to tell my dad first. So on a trip home, I arranged for alone time with him. I ask him. And we're in the car, and I'm so nervous, y'all. And I remember it's raining really hard, and the windshield wipers like just feel like synced with my heart. And I finally just like grab the armrests, and I just spit it out. And my dad doesn't skip a beat. He says, so you're bilateral? And I was like, well, Pops, that's not the term I prefer, but sure, something like that. And we just start talking, y'all. And he's asking me questions, and I'm answering them, and then he opens up too, and he shares this thing with me he's never told me, and then tells me he's never told anyone. And it's this like beautiful moment of like mutual trust and vulnerability that I never felt from him before. And when we get back to his house, he parks the car and he shuts it off. And he turns to me, and his eyes are a little glassy. And he said, Christine, I just want you to be happy. And I can't wait to meet her. And we're in this car, and we're surrounded by these beautiful curtains of water. And it feels like a temple in there. And I look at my dad, who's suddenly in his 70s. And I realize how much time I wasted keeping this side of myself from him because I was so afraid that he would reject me when he has never given me any reason to believe that he'd ever love me any less than the whole 7 yards. Thank you.